Well, frustration and confusion reigned over Saskatchewan the past 2 weeks because of some government decisions and systems. Healthcare workers say they're having problems with the province's new payroll and scheduling software. Meanwhile, the provincial government surprised Moose Jaw's mayor with an announcement that its shelter is moving out of the downtown. And finally, over on social media, Premier Scott Moe is accusing the NDP of, quote, attacking Israel over a motion to not expand exports to the country. The 306 Public Affairs panel has thoughts on all of that. Jack Saddleback is a professional speaker in Saskatoon. Dale Richardson, principal at Earnscliffe Strategies in Regina, and they both join us now. Good afternoon, Jack.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon, Dale.
Hello. Peter, I'm very sad that you're not here with me today, by the way. For the listeners,
look,
you're in Saskatoon. So
that's right. But poor Jack is whenever we do these panels, Jack's alone in the Saskatoon studio while we're down in Regina.
And he's sitting in my chair, if I may say. So this is a double whammy. But I was really glad to have you here in Saskatoon.
That's great. Yeah, it is great to be in person. We'll have to all come together again sometime. Let's start with the ongoing problems with AIMS, the Administrative Information Management System. The union says it's filed nearly 100 grievances with the health authority because some workers say they're receiving partial pay or completely missing pay, and the system's not scheduling enough staff. Jack, what's your reaction to these problems continuing a year into this system rollout, and also the fact that costs have doubled to $240 million?
First off, change itself can be a hard thing. On a scale this big, there are definitely going to be problems, and it is very frustrating for anyone who's on the receiving end of these what seems to be, and I hope are just technical issues taking place, as opposed to giving us a forecast of some deeper maybe data issues, programming issues that could be continued to be pushed down the line. When it looks at the when I look at the numbers of the $86 million of the original cost to now $250 million, that is quite concerning, especially when this is actually supposed to be saving the province money. This is supposed to be saving health time and healthcare wait times. And for myself as a citizen here in our province, I'm deeply concerned about what this could look like as we go forward. Because if we have stressed out healthcare workers, we're not going to receive the best of care. And I also don't want those citizens to have to worry about, am I going to pay my bills? You know, am I going to be able to have my kid in daycare? These are things that our healthcare workers should not have to worry about. But unfortunately, this software that they're trying to make life easier here in Saskatchewan is currently not tip-top shape.
Dale, not the first payment software or scheduling software to have major hiccups in our country. The government admits there have been some challenges with the system, but they added it, quote, it is committed to supporting them and addressing issues as they arise. What do you think's going on here with this?
I think we talked about this issue a while back, which is too bad that we're talking about it again, because it means that it's a problem still. This is one of these issues in government where I'm sure that the folks in cabinet and the premier, that they're going crazy about it, because they're not the ones actually, coding the software, or the premier's not the one building it. The government, they hire some outside tech firm to build these kinds of programs, and as Jack just went through, they're paying a lot of money for them to do that, and then it doesn't work. So that's very, very frustrating. But you know what? The way that our system of government works is the politicians, they're the ones in charge at the end of the day, and if things don't work properly and people aren't getting paid, it's their fault at the end of it. So, I'm sure the folks in government, they must be very frustrated by this.
Healthcare workers are calling for emergency funding so workers can get paid back pay, and they're asking that the government hit pause on this AIMS rollout until the bugs are fixed. The government isn't saying whether it'll do that or not. Jack, what do you think they should be doing?
Well, they got to be getting pretty creative with this because, as Dale, you just mentioned, it falls on the government's shoulders to be able to help address these problems that unfortunately have arisen due to this external body that is trying to roll in this healthcare system. I think it would be beneficial to explore the aspects of an emergency fund, because I do worry that we've seen how this is rolled out in phases in smaller communities. They are now looking at the last phase coming coming into our bigger healthcare spaces, i.e. Saskatoon and Regina. If we are having these challenges continue and it hits these big healthcare hubs, it really does bring a lot of concern about the potential healthcare wait times that'll happen, the stress that we're going to see in our healthcare workers that are outside there, and essentially our hubs be thrown into some more chaotic stress.
Dale, any more thoughts just on a system like this? I mean, you can't just backtrack, right? I'm sure there's contracts and things tied up in this.
No, and I think that's one of the real problems for the government here is they're so far down the line into it now. Jack went through the cost. It started off at I think $85 million, you said, or something like that, Jack. Now it's at 250, right? So, they're kind of too far into it to now pull out and cancel that contract with that company and maybe hire a new one. But then who knows how long that will take for them to rebuild a new system. So it's unfortunate. I don't think that the health minister or the premier or the folks in government are very happy about this. I mean, if there is a silver lining to this, I think that the number of affected people at this point is small. But I mean, even one person not getting paid for the work that they do it's one too many people.
Let's talk about the Moose Jaw Shelter. The government held a bit of a confusing news conference last week when it announced the city shelter is moving out of the downtown. The announcement caught the mayor off guard and also the John Howard Society, which runs that center. Dale, what do you think happened here?
It's a great question. It was in my notes. I think it's one of those things. I think it's an event. It's a press conference that if the folks in government, if they could do it again, I think that they would have done things differently. From what I can gather, and this is reading between the lines, is they had a meeting with the mayor. They had the premier and some MLAs. They had a pre-scheduled press conference that was going to happen after the meeting with the mayor. And I think that the mayor just scooped them on this, I guess, news of the shelter. But I don't think he relayed maybe the correct information, or perhaps he didn't have all the right details, or at least he didn't have the details that the government hoped that he would have had. So, yeah, there's this is a bit of a communications mess, no question about it, because my understanding on the actual details is that the province, they want to work with the city to determine if where the shelter is right now, is that the best location? And if it's not, what are some possibilities for where the shelter can be moved to? But overall, not great.
Yeah, to that point, Dale, the hours after the news, or the same day, though, the province did issue a statement saying the Ministry of Social Services had, quote, not provided a directive to relocate the shelter. And in short, saying, the cities and the province, or the city's responsible for coming up with a new location. The province will review that if it's suitable in their eyes. Jack, what do you think about how this all went down?
Yeah, Dale's typically beside you, so I get that.
Yeah, that's right.
But what is kind of frustrating about this is there seems to be some conversations that happened actually prior to the city being told about this. So it is coming from the province asking the city to move the shelter. And within the process of communication and consultation about this, it should be happening within the city's authority structures and in consultation with the province. And further to that, what I think is quite surprising, and I hope that people start to catch on to this, is the fact that the shelter itself also is not in these conversations and is not being consulted. In fact, the CEO of the John Howard Society only found out about this movement or this ask to move due to the media asking about what happened at the scrum. What I also want to kind of flag to folks is the current place of this shelter. Yes, it is in downtown, but from my understanding, it's in a side street and in between not only a courthouse, but a police station. So if we're looking at holistic care and access to care and kind of those wraparound services, what other location within the city of Moose Jaw can they be looking at? And I would be curious to see on how these consultations of that location is going to look like.
Yeah, Dale, the three of us have talked about shelters in Saskatchewan Saskatoon and Regina and NIMBYism in general. And I just wonder, because even the government said, look, yeah, you guys pick the new location, we'll review it. So does the province even need to be involved in this in the beginning to tell them we want you to move this shelter out of downtown?
Well, they do, because social services, they provide a huge chunk of the funding, if not all of the funding, for it. So, and because of that, there's MLAs that clearly heard concerns from businesses in the downtown near the shelter, which sounds like the businesses said we have concerns about the effect that this shelter is having on our businesses, and those concerns they shouldn't be dismissed. This issue about shelters, as we've discussed on the show, is probably one of the most I don't want to say divisive. I think it really depends on the community and where it's located, but certainly the most talked about issue that's been going on in the province, particularly in the big cities, because that's not exclusively, but it's generally where these shelters are, because there's the most people. It's been fascinating to follow the conversation on this kind of topic in our biggest cities.
Yeah, Jack, I don't know if we need to rehash this again, but if you do have any thoughts just about, Dale made the right point. It is a divisive thing, and George Carlin, I think, said it best. Everybody wants these facilities to help people, but they don't want them anywhere near them, right? Like, this conversation continues to go on. Now it's in Moose Jaw. Just any other thoughts on that?
Certainly. I'm curious about where this appropriate area is going to be. And everyone also, I think, has an idea of where this appropriate area could potentially look like. But right now, does it actually exist in any sort of urban space that we have, where folks are going to have some pushback of having a shelter in their quote-unquote backyard? I would be curious, though, as we look at the scrum that took place and kind of these, as Mo said, enforcement supports and the allusion to what is coming down the line, which is the compassionate care legislation, which is also in Alberta. So, this compounding of shelters, this compounding of the challenges that happens with illicit substances, and this compounding of defunding of some of our social services, this is where we're seeing all of these challenges take place. And shelters themselves are divisive, but there's so many other facets that actually bring this divisiveness out.
Well, let's turn to social media, a place that always fosters reasonable dialogue. Premier Mo's posts obviously obviously we get people arguing on a regular basis. It's the way politics and social media are these days. But last week he used Israel and the situation in the Middle East to attack the NDP. In a Facebook post he said, quote, "Just days before the anniversary of the October 7th massacre, the NDP passed an emergency motion saying that Saskatchewan should not be expanding our exports to Israel. The NDP's emergency motion attacks Israel. It does nothing to bring peace to the region, and it does nothing to support Saskatchewan people." Dale, was the NDP's motion an attack on Israel, do you think?
Peter, this issue, this topic we're going to talk about here, I think it's probably the most sensitive one from my perspective, and maybe Jack and you agree, that I think we'll have talked about on the show. I'd rather not talk about the Premier's social media post. This is such a hard political issue and upsetting. I'll just be honest, my household, we are probably not part of the ordinary part of a conservative or kind of center-right perspective where we are quite sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. We have Palestinian friends. We have people in our lives that have Palestinian passports. We have people in our lives that are closely connected to what goes on in Gaza. So the last 2 years have been difficult in that regard. And I think that this conversation is hard because it's become so politically divisive, where even if I say on this radio show right now, which I'm going to, which is the attacks on Israel on October 7th, 2023, were horrific and terrible, which they were. But I can also say that the result from that, which was, I'm not even sure what the numbers of people dead in Gaza has been in the last 2 years. I think it's 60,000 people.
That's
plus.
what I heard last year.
Not to mention famine and children and women, mostly amongst the dead there. This sucks. I really would rather not talk about this issue. And the fact that it is a political football in this province where we are so far from that conflict in the Middle East. I have a hard time with it. My wife, she worked in Jordan a number of years ago. She worked for this organization that provided relief to Palestinian refugees. So this issue, it's very close to me, and it's a hard one to talk about. So I'll just leave it at that.
I really appreciate that, and I think the part of the conversation here in terms of politics is one. I mean, just making a post like that that we know is going to be divisive. Jack, I don't know if you have any thoughts on just the idea of throwing this out on social media and getting people fired up on, regardless of what side you're on.
Indeed, social media itself can be a very dangerous place when it comes to having critical conversations about challenging and, as Dale had said, upsetting situations. This is a very complex political aspect and a very complex and in many ways hurtful situations that real people are having to face on a day-to-day basis. For Premier Moe to come out and simply put up one sort of post without maybe offering some opportunities for both parties to sit down and talk about this. Why bring this motion forward? How can we talk about the situation of this motion? In what ways can the province kind of look at some of these harder political conversations that are going to open dialogue between these two? Because it is complex, and there are certainly just upsetting things when stating the fact that violence is violence, and on both sides and all sides. And I certainly hope that they, within our province, our provincial leaders can sit down and start to have these deeper conversations about it, as opposed to just going to social media. And at the same time, from the NDP side of things, asking to have a conversation with the Sask Party about this. I think all sides really need to sit down.
Yeah, and Dale, you can make a quick comment if you want, but I think just a footnote is it kind of does provide a good example of conversations we're having more these days, whether it's trade with the United States or using Russia as an example. Ones, of course, they invaded Ukraine, right? They're complicated world issues that obviously still affect us in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think the Premier's social media post on it, first of all, I mean, the NDP motion, it was a really dumb thing. I think that the NDP team knew that it was going to be controversial. I don't know if it even made it to the floor, and if it did, it certainly didn't pass. But there is a constituency, and I would say a very large one, to my first point, in the Sask Party and in Conservative politics, where the Premier's social media post on the issue, where that really would have appealed to them. But as I stated in my first comments, this is a much deeper and a much more complicated issue. And even if people vote for the Sask Party or the Conservative Party, sometimes our personal views don't always align with those of the people leading those parties.
No, and I think that's a fair point too. Just the motivation of even bringing up a motion like this, Dale. Yeah. So I think that's fair as well. We're getting maybe a sneak peek into what we're going to see at the legislature. It's been pretty intense exchanges between the opposition and the government, just at least in news releases and on social media. Dale, what are you expecting from the government as we get ready for the throne speech on Wednesday?
Oh, I think it's going to be peace and love, man. I think the NDP and the Sask Party, they're going to be just exactly. They're going to have such a great time talking to each other, as Jack says, and just enjoying each other's company. I can see it happening now. No, the NDP, they're going to punch the government in the face every day. And I'll be very interested to see this session if the Premier and his team, the Sask Party team, if they can meet the energy that the NDP has been bringing lately. We talked on last show how the NDP, they're throwing everything at the wall. They're making announcements, doing press conferences to criticize the government on everything. Can Premier Moe match that? Does he have a next level to rise above what the NDP is throwing at him? I think that will be fascinating to watch this fall.
Jack, I got just about a minute. What are you going to be watching? Last October was a provincial election, and of course, teachers. We spent the last year talking about. What are you expecting going into this next session?
Well, I expect that my popcorn is going to be full as I watch the unfolding of this upcoming year. Needless to say, I will kind of push back a little bit on Dale when it comes to rising above or whatnot. I think the NDP themselves have done a fairly good job at holding this government accountable by bringing in some aspects that may go under the public's radar just because there's a lot going on in the province. How can any one person keep up with it? And for the NDP, it's their job to ensure that any government, regardless if it's the Sask Party, regardless if it's, I hope, if they ever are in that role as well, that they will welcome being held accountable, welcome being held to a critical lens. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing as we go forward. There's a lot of social challenges out there. There's a lot of international things, as we've talked about today, that are putting pressure on our province. And you know what? I do agree wholeheartedly with Dale that it will be all rainbows and sunshine as we all discuss this and come to a good conclusion.
Well, I'm glad that we can always come together and have a great conversation. And I'm honestly thrilled that the Ledge is coming back next Wednesday because we'll have lots to talk about in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.